The workshop smelled like burnt metal and disappointment. Kira stood at her workbench, watching the other students bend exotic alloys with their bare hands. Around her, creatures from 17 different star systems worked their ancestral forging techniques. The Vexler twins used their forearms to twist crystalline steel into perfect spirals. Thresh, the rocky giant from Colden Prime, sang his people's ancient songs while his stone fingers shaped titanium like clay. Even little Pip, barely 3 feet tall and covered in blue fur, wielded a plasma hammer twice her size with casual grace. And then there was Kira, human, Earthborn, the only one of her kind in the entire Galactic Artisan Academy. Students. Master Vorik's voice cut through the workshop noise like a blade through silk. The old Sarkonian teacher stood 7 feet tall, his scaled skin reflecting the forged fires in shade of emerald and gold. His eyes, all 4 of them, swept across the room with ancient wisdom and barely concealed impatience. You have 6 cycles to complete your trial weapon. This blade will determine whether you advance to the journeyman level or whether you return home in shame. Kira felt her stomach tighten. 6 cycles. In Earth time, that meant about 8 days. 8 days to forge something worthy of passing the most prestigious crafting program in the known galaxy. Your blade must cut through a Draven combat plate. Vorik held up a sheet of the legendary armor material. It gleamed like liquid night. It must hold an edge after 100 strikes against granite. It must balance perfectly in the hand of a warrior. And most importantly, he paused, letting his words sink into every anxious heart in the room. It must reflect your people's heritage, your ancestors' wisdom, your species' unique contribution to the art of making things that kill. A nervous laugh rippled through the students. Not from Kira. She just stared at the blank space on her workbench where her materials should have been. Begin! Vorik's command echoed like thunder. The workshop erupted into controlled chaos. Forges roared to life. Hammers rang against anvils in rhythmic patterns passed down through millennia. The Vexlers started chanting in their twin speak, a language only they understood, as their hands moved in perfect synchronization. Thresh began heating his titanium blank to temperatures that would vaporize a human. Pip activated her plasma forge, the air around her shimmering with heat. Kira walked to the material stockpile. Her footsteps felt too loud on the stone floor. The storage area held wonders that would make any Earth metallurgist weep with joy. Bars of star-forged steel from the Antares foundries. Sheets of memory metal from the shape-shifting mines of Morpha 7. Crystallized carbon lattices from the deep-pressure forges of gas giant stations. Every material imaginable, and several that weren't. Problem: human. The voice came from her left. Kira didn't need to turn around to know who it belonged to. Drex. Of course it was Drex. The Corthian leaned against a support pillar, his chitinous armor gleaming like polished obsidian. He was tall, even by his species standards, with mandibles that clicked together in what his people called laughter but everyone else called deeply unsettling. No problem, Kira replied, keeping her voice level. She reached for a bar of standard carbon steel. That is basic stock, Drex said, his mandibles clicking faster now. The kind we use for practice pieces. For children's toys. You truly think you can pass the trial with that? Watch me. Oh, I will. Drex pushed off from the pillar, his multiple eyes gleaming with something between amusement and contempt. I will watch you fail, just as your people fail at everything requiring actual skill. Humans. So primitive. So limited. You barely discovered fusion before you stumbled into galactic society. You have no forging traditions, no ancestral techniques, no legendary smiths in your history. What will you do, little human? Weld some scrap together and hope for the best. Kira's jaw clenched. Her fingers tightened around the steel bar until her knuckles went white. My people, she said slowly, carefully, have been killing each other with sharp objects for 10,000 years. We might not have plasma forges or molecular realignment chambers, but we understand blades. We understand what it means to make something that cuts. Then why are you shaking? Drex leaned closer. His breath smelled like copper and spite. Could it be because you know the truth? You do not belong here. This academy is for true craftsmen, for species with heritage, with tradition, not for jumped-up apes who learned to stack rocks yesterday, cosmically speaking. Drex! Master Vorik's voice cut through the tension like a guillotine blade. Return to your station. Now. Drex straightened, gave Kira one last contemptuous look, and stalked back to his workbench. But Kira could still feel his eyes on her, could still hear his mandibles clicking. She carried her steel bar back to her station, set it down, stared at it. Then she pushed it aside. Miss Chen. Vorik appeared at her elbow like a green-scaled ghost. You have selected no materials. You have lit no forge. The other students are already shaping their blanks. Time is not a luxury you possess. I know, Kira said. She took a deep breath. Master Vorik, can I use any material I choose? As long as it forms a blade that meets the requirements. All four of Vorik's eyes focused on her with uncomfortable intensity. The rules state you must use the ancestral techniques of your people and create something that reflects your heritage. The materials matter less than the method and the meaning. Why do you ask? Kira reached into the leather satchel she kept under her workbench. The same satchel that had traveled with her from Earth, from home, from everything she had left behind to study here, at the galaxy's finest academy, where everyone treated her like a curious joke at best and an unwelcome intruder at worst. Her fingers closed around something smooth and white. When she pulled it out, the workshop went quiet. One by one, students stopped their work to stare. In Kira's hand was bone, a human femur, to be precise, bleached white, perfectly preserved, about 15 inches long. What is that? Pip's voice was barely a whisper, but in the sudden silence, it carried. My great-grandmother's thigh bone, Kira said calmly. She set it on her workbench with a soft click. She donated her body to science. Then to me. She always said she wanted to be useful after death, wanted to teach, to help. I think she would love this. The workshop stayed frozen. Every eye in the room fixed on that pale bone sitting on the scarred wooden workbench like an accusation. Master Vorik's scales rippled in a way Kira had learned meant he was deeply troubled. You intend to forge a weapon from the remains of your ancestor. Not forge, Kira corrected. She pulled out a whetstone, some sandpaper, and a small collection of files from her bag. Shape. Sharpen. My people did not always have metal, Master Vorik, but we always had bones, and teeth, and stone. We made the first blade from pieces of our world, from pieces of ourselves, from whatever we could find that would hold an edge and take a life. That is barbaric. Drex's voice dripped with disgust. Kira turned to face him. A smile played at the corners of her mouth, but it did not reach her eyes. You call it barbaric. I call it resourceful. Your people had access to star metal before you even evolved opposable thumbs. The Vexlers grew up in a world where crystalline structures form naturally in the caves. Thresh people literally eat rocks and excrete pure metals. Everyone here had advantages, had natural gifts, had evolutionary head starts. She picked up the bone, feeling a familiar weight. My ancestors had rocks, sticks, bones, and they used them to conquer an entire planet. Every predator, every environment, every challenge. We did not wait for the universe to give us good materials. We used what we had. We improvised. We adapted. We survived. By desecrating your dead, Drex sneered. By honoring them, Kira shot back. By making them part of something greater. My great-grandmother taught me to never give up, to use every advantage, to turn weakness into strength. So yes, I'm going to sharpen her bone into a blade. And yes, I'm going to pass this trial with it, because that is what humans do. We take the hand we are dealt, no matter how terrible, and we play it anyway. We win anyway. She looked around the workshop, meeting every stare, every judgmental eye. You all think I do not belong here, that humans are too primitive, too new, too crude. Maybe you are right. Maybe we are all those things. But we are also stubborn, vindictive, creative, and really, really good at holding grudges. Kira picked up her whetstone. So watch closely, everyone. Watch what happens when you push a human into a corner. Watch what we can do when we get creative. She began to sharpen the bone. The sound was wrong. Not the ring of metal on stone. Something softer, more organic, The rasp was something ancient being worn down, molecule by molecule, into something useful, something deadly. Around her, the other students slowly returned to their own work. But the atmosphere had changed. The workshop no longer felt like a place of academic competition. It felt like something else, something darker, like a challenge had been issued, and everyone was waiting to see if it would be answered with blood. Master Vorik watched Kira work for a long moment. His expression was unreadable. Finally, he spoke, his voice low enough that only she could hear. "You walk a dangerous path, Miss Chen. Many here already resent your presence. This will not earn you friends." "I did not come here to make friends," Kira replied without looking up from her work. The bone was beginning to take shape under her hands. She could feel it, the potential, the promise. "I came here to prove that humans belong in the galaxy, that we are not just lucky primitives who stumbled into star travel, that we have something to contribute. And if you fail, then I fail." Kira's hands never stopped moving, stone against bone, rough edges smoothing out, a point beginning to emerge. "But I will fail doing something so audacious, so completely human, that everyone will remember it. That is the thing about humans, Master Vorik. We would rather be spectacular failures than forgettable mediocrities." Vorik's scales rippled again. This time, Kira could have sworn it was almost a laugh. 6 cycles, Miss Chen. Make them count." He walked away, leaving Kira alone with her bone and her whetstone and her grandmother's ghost. Around her, forges roared, hammers rang, songs echoed. The Academy's finest students crafted blades from the finest materials in the galaxy, using techniques refined over thousands of generations. And in the middle of it all, one human girl sat at a scarred workbench, sharpening a piece of bone, and planning revenge against everyone who had ever doubted her. The first day ended with the workshop doors sealing shut. Kira had barely made a dent in her work. The bone had proved harder than she expected, more resistant to shaping. But she could see it now, the blade hiding inside, waiting to be freed. As she cleaned her tools and prepared to leave, Drex passed by her station. He stopped, looked at the half-shaped bone. His mandibles clicked in that unsettling laugh. "Enjoy your folly, human. I will enjoy watching you explain your failure to the Council." Kira looked up at him. Her smile was sharp, predatory. "Drex, let me tell you something about humans. We did not climb to the top of Earth's food chain by being the strongest or the fastest. We did it by being persistent, by refusing to quit, by hunting our prey until they drop from exhaustion. We are endurance predators. We outlast everything. So when I pass this trial, and when my bone blade cuts through that combat plate while your fancy star metal snaps." She leaned forward slightly. "I am going to enjoy every second of your face when you realize you were wrong about us." Drex's mandibles stopped clicking. He stalked away without another word. Kira gathered her things, slipped the bone into a protective wrap, and headed for the dormitories. Behind her, the forges cooled. The workshop settled into darkness. But in her mind, the blade was already complete. She could see it, feel it, taste it. 5 cycles to go. Time to show the galaxy what humans could do with nothing but bones and spite. The second day started with whispers. Kira felt them like needles against her skin as she walked through the academy corridors toward the workshop. Students from other programs stopped their conversations when she passed. Some stared openly. Others pretended not to notice her, but their eyes followed anyway. Word had spread. The human girl was forging a blade from her ancestor's bone. "Freak," someone muttered. Kira did not turn to see who. The workshop was already humming with activity when she arrived. Most students had progressed significantly overnight. The Vexler twins had their blade roughed out and were working on edge geometry. Thresh had somehow convinced his titanium to grow in crystalline patterns that caught the light like frozen lightning. Even Pip had managed to plasma weld 3 different alloys into a layered composite that would have made Damascus steel look crude by comparison. Kira set her wrapped bone on the workbench and carefully unwrapped it. In the forge light, it looked almost luminous. Ivory white, smooth in places where she had worked yesterday, still rough in others. She picked up her sandpaper and got to work. Hours passed. The bone slowly revealed its true nature under her patient hands. It was harder than she remembered from her anatomy studies. Denser, Something about the preservation process had compacted the structure, made it more resilient. Good. She would need every advantage. How goes a freak show? Drex appeared at her shoulder like a bad smell. He had brought friends this time. 3 other Corthians, their chitinous armor gleaming in various shades of black and deep blue. Better than your personality, Kira replied without looking up. One of Drex's friends clicked his mandibles in what might have been offense. You dare speak to a Corthian noble with such disrespect? Oh, he is a noble. Kira glanced up, feigning surprise. My apologies. I thought he was just another spoiled brat with more inheritance than talent. Hard to tell the difference sometimes. Drex's hand shot out, grabbing the bone before Kira could react. He held it up, examining it with exaggerated disgust. Look at this. Brothers. She calls this a blade. I have seen better weapons in a natural history museum, in the primitive exhibits, next to the cave paintings and the wheel. Give it back. Kira's voice was quiet. Dangerous. Oh, what? Drex tossed a bone from hand to hand. You will cry. You will run to Master Vorik. You will write a strongly worded complaint in your adorable little human language. I will break your mandibles off one at a time and use them as chopsticks, Kira said flatly. Give it back. The workshop had gone quiet again. Everyone was watching, waiting. Drex's multiple eyes gleamed with malicious joy. You want it? Come take it. He threw the bone across the workshop. It tumbled through the air, white against the dark stone walls, arcing toward the far corner where the waste bin stood. Kira moved. She vaulted over her workbench, sprinted 3 steps, and dove. Her hand closed around the bone inches before it hit the ground. She rolled, came up in a crouch, and was back on her feet in one fluid motion. The workshop erupted in shocked murmurs. Kira walked back to her station, her eyes locked on Drex. She did not blink, did not smile, just stared with a flat, emotionless expression of a predator calculating the exact amount of force needed to kill something. Impressive reflexes. Master Vorik's voice cut through the tension. He had appeared from his office, drawn by the commotion. Miss Chen, are you harmed? No, Master. Good. Vorik turned to Drex. His scales had darkened to a deep, angry emerald. Lord Drex, your family's donations to this academy have bought you many privileges. They have not bought you the right to sabotage another student's work. Touch your materials again, and I will personally recommend your expulsion to the council. Am I absolutely clear? Drex's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of stress. You would take the side of a human over a Corthian noble. I would take the side of academic integrity over aristocratic arrogance, Vorik replied coldly. Return to your work. All of you. Now. The Corthians retreated, but Drex's eyes promised that this was not over. Kira sat back down at her workbench. Her hands were shaking slightly. Adrenaline, fear, rage. She channeled it all into her work. Stone against bone, grain by grain, layer by layer, the blade emerging like a secret being revealed. That was incredibly stupid, a small voice said from her right. Pip had rolled her stool over. The little blue alien looked up at Kira with enormous eyes. Drex does not forget insults. His family has connections. They could make your life very difficult. My life is already difficult, Kira replied. She was working on the blade's point now, shaping it into something that would penetrate armor. I am the only human in a school full of species that have been forging weapons since before my ancestors figured out fire. Difficult is my baseline. Pip tilted her head. Why did you come here? Why put yourself through this? Because someone has to. Kira tested the point with her thumb. Not sharp enough yet. More work needed. Humans are new to the galaxy. Everyone knows that. But new does not mean inferior. It does not mean we have nothing to contribute. I came here to prove that. To show that human ingenuity and human stubbornness can stand alongside any species' traditions. And if you fail, then at least I tried. Kira looked at the small alien. Tell me something, Pip. When your people first tried to join the galactic community, did everyone welcome you with open arms? Or did you have to fight for respect? Pip's fur rippled in a gesture Kira had learned meant discomfort. We We had to prove ourselves. Yes, there were trials, challenges. Many of my people died trying to meet the standards set by older species. Then you understand. Kira returned to her work. This is my trial, my challenge. I will meet it, or I will die trying. But I will not quit. Humans do not quit. Pip watched her work for a moment longer, then rolled her stool back to her own station. But something had changed. There was a thoughtfulness in her enormous eyes that had not been there before. The third day brought unexpected allies. Thresh approached Kira's workbench during the mid-cycle break. The massive stone giant held a bowl of his people's food, which looked like gravel but apparently tasted like whatever you imagined food should taste like. He set another bowl on her workbench. You do not eat enough. His voice rumbled like an avalanche in slow motion. Small humans need sustenance. Kira looked at the bowl of rocks, then at Thresh. Thank you. You remind me of my clutch sister, Thresh continued. He settled his massive bulk onto the floor beside her workbench. The stone creaked under his weight. She was small for our people. Others mocked her, said she would never pass the trials, never earn her name. What happened to her? She became the finest stone singer in 3 generations. Thresh rocky face split in what might have been a smile. She sang the support column for the Grand Archive on Colden Prime. They say her work will stand for 10,000 years. The ones who mocked her are forgotten. Their names lost to time. But hers will echo forever. Kira felt something in her chest loosen slightly. Thank you for telling me that. Thank me by finishing your blade, Thresh said. I would very much like to see what a human can create when properly motivated by spite. By the 4th day, Kira's bone blade had taken its final form. It was 14 inches long from point to base, slightly curved, following the natural arc of the femur. One edge was sharpened to a point that could split hairs. The other edge had a series of subtle serrations that would saw through flesh and catch on armor. The grip was wrapped in leather strips from Earth, the only other thing she had brought from home besides the bone itself. It was not beautiful in the way the other blades were beautiful. It did not gleam with exotic metals or shimmer with alien technologies. It was pale and organic and deeply unsettling to look at. It was perfect. Crude, Drex announced loudly to anyone who would listen. Primitive. It will shatter against the combat plate. Mark my words. Kira ignored him. She was busy testing the blade's balance, feeling how it moved in her hand, how it wanted to cut. The 5th day was spent in final preparations. Students honed their edges, adjusted their balance points, made last-minute modifications. The workshop buzzed with nervous energy. Kira used a leather strop to bring her bone blade to its final sharpness. Each pass along the leather produced a whisper of sound, like something hungry, something eager. The 6th and final day arrived with the weight of judgment. Master Vorik assembled all the students in the workshop. Behind him stood the testing apparatus. A Draven combat plate mounted in a vise, a granite block for the 100-strike test, a precision balance for measuring weight distribution. And behind all of that, a panel of 5 master craftsmen from across the galaxy come to judge the students' work. You will be called in alphabetical order by species, Vorik announced. The tests are simple. Cut the combat plate. Survive 100 strikes against granite. Demonstrate proper balance. Those who pass advance to journeyman status. Those who fail. He let the sentence hang. The testing began. The Vexler twins went first. Their crystalline blade cut through the combat plate like butter. It survived the 100 strikes without a chip. The balance test was perfect. The judges nodded in approval. Fresh titanium blade sang. When it struck the combat plate, the sound resonated through the workshop like a bell. The blade cut through, survived the strikes, balanced perfectly. More nods. Pip's composite blade performed flawlessly. The judges actually smiled. One by one, students were tested. Most passed. A few did not. There were tears, celebrations, the full range of emotion that came with years of work being validated or destroyed in minutes. Then it was Drex's turn. The Corthian strutted to the testing station like he owned it. His blade was a masterwork of star-forged alloy and plasma-sharpened edges. It gleamed like captured starlight. He cut through the combat plate with a single, contemptuous stroke. The blade rang against granite 100 times without a scratch. It balanced like it had been born in the hand of a god. The judges conferred, then nodded. Perfect marks. Drex turned to face the workshop. His mandibles clicked in triumph. His eyes found Kira. The message was clear. Beat that. Chen, Kira, Master Vorik called. Human, you are next. The workshop went silent. Kira stood, picked up her bone blade, walked to the testing station. The 5 judges stared at her weapon with expressions ranging from curiosity to outright revulsion. That is bone, one of them said. An elderly Velkasi with skin like tree bark. You forge a blade from skeletal remains. I shaped it, Kira corrected. My people did not always have access to metals. We used what was available. Bone, stone, wood. We learned to make them deadly. Proceed with the test, another judge said. She sounded doubtful. Kira approached the combat plate. The dark material seemed to absorb light. This was what the galaxy's warriors wore into battle. This was what protected them from plasma fire and rail guns and every other nightmare weapon that civilized species had invented. She raised her blade. This will be entertaining, Drex muttered. Just loud enough to carry. Kira struck. The bone blade hit the combat plate with a sound like breaking glass. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a hairline crack appeared in the dark material. Then another. The crack spread like spider webs, racing across the plate surface. The combat plate shattered. The workshop erupted in gasps. Impossible, one of the judges breathed. The bone, another said, leaning forward. It is vibrating at a specific frequency. The strike transferred kinetic energy into resonance. It shattered the plate's molecular structure from within. How did you know that would work? Master Vorik asked Kira. She allowed herself a small smile. I did not. But human bones are designed to absorb and distribute impact forces, to flex without breaking. I figured if I shaped the blade to maximize that natural resonance, it might do something interesting to rigid materials. Guess I was right. Luck. Drex spat. Pure luck. The granite test will destroy it. Kira moved to the granite block. 100 strikes. The blade had to survive without losing its edge. She began. Strike 1. The bone rang against stone. A sound like wind chimes. Strike 10. A small chip appeared near the tip. Kira's heart sank. Strike 20. The chip had not grown. The blade held. Strike 50. Sweat dripped down Kira's back. Her arms ached. Strike 75. The judges were leaning forward now. Even the doubtful one. Strike 99. Kira's vision blurred with exhaustion. Strike 100. She stepped back. Examined the blade. The small chip near the tip had not grown. The edge was still sharp, still deadly. It passed, Vorik said quietly. The balance test was anticlimactic. The blade balanced perfectly. The judges inferred in hushed tones for what felt like hours. Finally, the elderly Velkasi spoke. Miss Chen, your methods are unorthodox. Some might even call them disturbing. But you have proven that human ingenuity and ancestral techniques have a place in galactic craftsmanship. You pass. Welcome to journeyman status. The workshop erupted. Fresh stone hand thumped against the floor like thunder. Pip squeaked with joy. Even the Vexler twins clicked their approval. Kira turned to look at Drex. The Corthian stood frozen. His mandibles hung slack. His multiple eyes were wide with disbelief. She walked over to him. Stopped just close enough to speak quietly. I told you, humans do not quit. We adapt. We overcome. We win. Maybe next time you will think twice before underestimating us. Drex said nothing. He just stared at the bone blade in her hand like it was a demon summoned from nightmare. Kira walked back to her workbench, cleaned her blade, wrapped it carefully. She could feel every eye in the workshop on her, but the quality of that attention had changed. No longer was she the curiosity, the joke, the primitive upstart who did not belong. She was something else now, something they had to respect, something they had to fear. Human. That evening, Master Vorik found her in the dormitory courtyard. She was sitting under an alien tree, looking up at unfamiliar stars, holding her grandmother's bone blade. You took a tremendous risk, Vorik said, settling his bulk onto the bench beside her. If the blade had failed, you would have been expelled, sent home in disgrace. Why gamble everything on such an unconventional approach? Kira considered the question. Because conventional was not going to work for me. I did not have the advantages everyone else had. No centuries of forging tradition. No access to exotic materials. No evolutionary gifts. All I had was human stubbornness and a willingness to try something nobody else would even consider. You had more than that, Vorik said gently. You had courage, creativity, the wisdom to turn limitation into advantage. Those are the marks of a true craftsman. Will they ever accept me? Kira asked. Really accept me? Not just tolerate me because I passed their test. Vorik was quiet for a long moment. Some will not. That is the nature of a galaxy, Miss Chen. But today you proved something important. You proved that humans belong here, that your people have something unique to contribute, that will ripple outward. Other humans will come. They will look at what you did here and find courage. You are not just a student passing a test. You are a pioneer, the first of your kind. Kira looked down at the blade in her hands. Her great-grandmother's final gift. She would have loved this, she whispered. The drama, the risk, the victory against the odds. She was always the one who told me to never accept limitations, never let anyone define what I could or could not do. She sounds like she was a remarkable woman. She was. Kira stood, tucking the blade into its wrap. Thank you, Master Vorik, for believing I could do this, for not stopping me when everyone else thought I should quit. Thank you, Vorik replied, for reminding me why I became a teacher. Sometimes we forget that the best students are not the ones who follow every rule. They are the ones who understand which rules deserve to be broken. Kira walked back toward the dormitories. Behind her, Master Vorik watched the human girl disappear into the alien night. In his long life, he had taught thousands of students, hundreds of species, countless talents. But he suspected he would remember this one for a very, very long time. The workshop lights burned late that night. Students who had passed their trials celebrated. Those who had not packed their belongings in silence. And somewhere in the middle of it all, one human girl sat at her workbench, cleaning a blade made from her ancestor's bone and planning what to forge next. Because that was what humans did. They took impossible situations and turned them into opportunities. They took scraps and made weapons. They took doubt and forged it into determination. The galaxy had not seen the last of human ingenuity. Not by a long shot. This was just the beginning.